Hello and welcome to the Healthcare Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Slawson, and today I'm talking with Darren Thorne, Managing Director of Facere Melius. Facere Melius is a healthcare consultancy firm who specialises in independent investigations within healthcare. We're talking with Darren Thorne today about undertaking complex investigations. So Darren, where do you start with these complex independent investigations?
Hi, Rachel. So we get approached in different ways. Sometimes they're clients that we're currently working with, other times they're new clients to us. We were fortunate enough in 2019 to be put on the NHS Independent Investigation Framework. So that means that any NHS related organisation can access our investigation services. And they can, as an organisation, you can put out a quote for the different people on that framework to respond, or you can approach us directly and make a direct award.
Once you've been awarded the contract, what's the next steps?
So we'll put together a team of investigators. We'll look at the skills that we need. All of our associates are trained to do safety investigation techniques. Some of those will be familiar to listeners. So root cause analysis, the 5 whys, and all those kinds of different techniques. Most of our associates are former clinicians or have worked in patient safety roles at a senior level. And all of our investigators have enhanced security checks. Once we've got the investigating team together, then we move on to use our network of clinicians to create a clinical advisory board. And we use our own director of nursing and medical director to advise us on what skills and experience that we'll need within that clinical team.
Oh, brilliant. So there's actually quite a lot of people who are involved in this with lots of different skill sets. I imagine managing that's quite a challenge.
Yeah, so in a recent investigation, the infection outbreak investigation, we had a microbiologist, we had a community infection control specialist, a wound care specialist, as all part of the clinical team. And then as an add-on, we had some specialist clinical deterioration advice as well.
Yeah, it's important to be able to cover every aspect that might be coming up within the independent investigation so that you can provide the best quality report that you possibly can, because it's really complex, multiple documents and multiple stakeholders, and yeah, it's challenging.
Yes, so talking about the documents, we will gather information from all the electronic clinical systems, the handwritten patient notes, so that would include the medical records, the nursing records, information on any diagnostic tests that have been undertaken. We sometimes also request information from other health and care organisations, so that might include the GP, the ambulance service or community service provider, a care home, or maybe a domiciliary agent.
How do you go about pulling down all of that information?
We've got a system where every record that comes in, we keep a sort of an archive copy, which is it as it comes into us. We then have each page electronically stamped so that every page across all of the documents has a unique identifying number. That helps us when we move into the chronology. So the next step, once everything's been referenced, is we start to create a comprehensive chronology. This plots every event that occurred, every blood test that happened, every clinical assessment, every time the patient was moved. And from that, we can then create key lines of inquiry. And what we do is when we're entering something onto the chronology, we will always put the unique identifier of the page that we're referring to of that event. So it's really easy to cross-check as we move through the investigation. Once we have a comprehensive chronology, we'll start to create key lines of inquiry. So we'll start to examine, well, what are the things that we need to look at in more detail? And it's at this stage that our first clinical review occurs. So we look to validate the key lines of inquiry and do a full review of all the diagnostic information that we have. So here we're looking to independently validate the clinical picture against the clinical interventions that have been given.
It obviously takes a really good, thorough filing system because you need to be able to make sure you can cross-reference all the documents. So I'm assuming that if each document is referenced, then they have a page number and you could specifically reference a page and can always go back and find that document.
Absolutely. And it's really important, particularly when we're doing large complex investigations. So one of our most recent investigations was included 13 people. So looking at the care that 13 people were given, their treatment and care that they received. So you imagine a set of notes for an individual is quite detailed, but multiply that by 13 times. And then, of course, you don't just have the patient records, you've got things like national policies, local policies, that again all need to be referenced so that we can be really quick to go back to the evidence that sits behind a particular chronological entry.
Yeah, and if anyone's ever worked in healthcare, you'll know that it's not even just the patient, the physical patient notes. It'll be from multiple different systems that you've got to pull off. You know, no wonder there are issues with patients' care sometimes when you've got, 5, 6, 96 different clinical systems that you need to check potentially that might have impact that patient's care. It makes it really complex.
It does, and we have to be really careful about how we handle sensitive patient information. So we have lots of safeguards that are put in place to protect patient identifiable information. We currently meet the NHS standards on the Data Security and Protection Toolkit, which was the old IG toolkit, and we're an authorised user by NHS Digital of nhs.net, which means that we can securely pass around patient identifiable information between the commissioning organisation and our organisation. All of our information, both electronic and paper, is stored securely and meets robust processes to keep it safe.
Hi, it's Rachel just popping on here to let you know that this footage ended up being a bit longer than I thought, so I've split this into 3 parts. So I will leave an iCard somewhere up here with part 2, and I will create a playlist on YouTube so that you can go and watch all 3 parts. I really hope that you enjoy it. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.